Others may join us as we go forward, but I think in the interest of efficiency of everybody's time, let's get started. I I want to say first of all, the meeting's recorded, just so that everybody knows, and we'll post it up on our. We'll make it available so that folks who weren't able to be here can get the information. Um, really grateful to the folks from the agencies, from Maria Gagova and Emmanuel Briggs, from DC Water, and Christian and Elliot and Matthew Marcoux from DDOT. Uh, there's a lot of work out there that is happening in different places. And often folks feel like they didn't get notice, or there may have been notice, but they didn't see it, and they don't understand exactly what's going on. And there are multiple agencies. So we thought that it would be very useful to bring the two key agencies together so they can talk about what they're doing in terms of the construction that's going on in up and down Connecticut Avenue. But for DC Water, I see there's a project also on Wisconsin Avenue and others that maybe can come up. On the DC Water, on one topic that will come up is the soapstone work and the traffic issues around the soapstone work. And this is one of those projects where folks got started and there were real challenges along the way, and things didn't go as quickly as anyone would have hoped. And there's a lot of frustration. There's also the challenge of being able to predict the unknown, which is a challenge that I think DDOT and DC Water have faced on Albemarle Street and in other places. But we want to maximize communication, so this is an opportunity to do that. Another thing is the night work, and that's really the thing that initiated this. The sense is that night work should really be the exception when when you're near a residential neighborhood and near where people are trying to sleep. And so there has been a substantial amount of frustration around the amount of night work from, say, Jocelyn Street to Military Street on Connecticut Avenue over an extended period of time. And people want to understand, why did it have to be at night? Um, and how could we have had better notice so that people knew when it was going to be and could prepare and understood the rationale for it? I sometimes wonder why the work needs to happen at night, and it's very useful to have both agencies here so they can both tell us how they see it through their prism. I will say on the water main replacement, it was sobering to me um, when the pipe burst over on at Van Ness in Connecticut. And so we're taking out pipes and replacing them, or we're replacing pipes because it's ancient infrastructure. And the failure to do that could lead to things like what we saw at Van Ness in Connecticut, where it was an explosion. The pipe broke and the sidewalk shot up. And so this is work that needs to be done. The question is, how can we get this done in a way that's the least disruptive to everyone's lifestyles, enables the agencies to get it done, and everybody has a clear understanding of what's being done and why it's being done when. So that's probably a longer introduction than might I anticipated giving, but I do think hopefully that helps frame where we're at and why this group has come together. And there's some concerned residents, and they want explanations. Uh, I'm going to turn it now to DC Water. I think DC Water is going to give a presentation of the work that they're doing. After DC Water does their presentation, I think we're going to turn to DDOT to do a presentation about the work that they're doing and how they interface with these efforts. And hopefully that will get us to around 7:05. And then we'll have plenty of time for questions and comments, and we'll turn to questions and comments. But let's have the agencies lay out their understanding of the situation and the issues that have been raised. So I don't know who on the DC Water side is going to be doing the presentation, but let us turn it over to you now.
Can you guys hear me? Sorry.
Yes,
Yeah, we
I
can
can
hear
hear
you.
you.
Yes.
So this is Emmanuel Briggs, and I do apologize. I'm actually at my desk tonight because I didn't want to chance any kind of connectivity issues at home with internet. But I'm on a new monitor and the camera is not working for me right now. So sorry, bear with me. But yes, I am the Director of Community Affairs in DC Water's Office of Marketing, and Communications. And I do want to thank Councilmember Fruman and his staff, DDOT, the ANC, the MOKers, the commissioners, for working with us through these projects in your neighborhood that we are working feverishly to bring to fruition. So what we have as far as the Connecticut Avenue project, and I wonder if I just wanted to put the project information sheet just as a visual as I'm talking. Let's see if I can do that. Okay. You guys see the screen?
Yeah, no, I can see your screen. I hope others can.
Okay. So we don't have like PowerPoint slides, but because we're talking about this project, I wanted to pull up this project information sheet. So essentially what we're doing, this is a part of a quick snapshot of this project. This is a part of our larger small diameter water main replacement program, which is part and parcel of our capital improvement program. And so what we're doing is we are replacing small diameter, 12 inches smaller cast iron water mains at a number of locations across the city. We have been aggressively doing this since the early 2000s. I want to say 2004. And so we're replacing about 1% water mains a year. And so every water main in the district is prioritized along certain criteria, such as known water quality issues, age of the main, history of breaks on the main, and other factors. So every main in the city is prioritized and scheduled for replacement. And this is one of the areas, the Chevy Chase neighborhood is one of the areas where a lot of the water mains here have been identified for replacing now. On the flip side of the project information sheet, so I want to show you guys this. This shows the location where we're working along Connecticut Avenue, Jocelyn Street, Canada Street, Nevada Avenue. So we're working along some areas here. So I just wanted to give this background to say we do apologize in the inconveniences that residents have experienced. And the residents experiencing that, also the elected officials' offices, as well as DC Water's office. You've been experiencing lots of work happening during the nighttime. We do apologize for that. What typically happens when we do work at nighttime, there's certain factors that dictate night work. It could be daytime traffic in the area. It could be certain stakeholders in the area, like the dialysis centers, hospitals, schools, things of that nature, which sometimes will lead us to deduce that the best way to get some work completed is during nighttime or weekend. In this instance, it was assessed that doing the work during nighttime would allow us to get around the daytime traffic issues in the area. So that the nighttime permit is the permit that we had applied for and we had gotten from DDOT, and that's the permit we've been working under since August. So we've been working in the area, before now, but it's been day work. But I know since August we've been doing the night work, and that's really when a lot of this has happened, understandably so, working from 8 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning. I work in construction, so I'm now desensitized to it. But that is not to say that residents who don't work in it don't have to deal with it, don't live near it, what they've had to deal with and their families for the last few months. So I will again, on behalf of DC Water, apologize for that. But what I do have is Maria Gigova, our project manager on the line, and Maria is going to give us a discussion on where we are right now with the project and kind of what's coming up. So Maria, if you could jump in and give us just a summary on the schedule of where we are and what's coming up.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Yes, and if you see, you took away the map.
I'm bringing it back up. Sorry.
If you can, please, maybe it will be clear for everybody where we are right now on the project. But yes, so the good news is that the majority of what Emmanuel showed on this map, majority of the construction activities are already completed. And as you see, the extent of the new water main installations in your neighborhood is quite extensive. The work on Nevada, the new water main installations on Nevada, on Jocelyn and Kanawha are already completed. That particular work was completed during daytime. And as Emmanuel pointed out, the biggest consideration for the work on Connecticut to be done during nighttime, this decision was not taken lightly. We've consulted with it was decided as a team, along with our contractor, evaluated the area, along with the DC Water team. And we jointly decided to request permission from DDOT for the new water main installations to be completed at night. And we received approval for this permit for the work to be completed specifically on Connecticut Avenue, where all of us saw that the traffic, the flow of traffic will even further impact and slow down the installations. One of the issues is that some of even with the approved by night permits, we did have further considerations with the contractor. The permit, for example, from DDOT allowed the contractor to perform installations at night from Monday night all the way to Friday night. It was decided that the Friday night work will not take place to allow for some relief of the residents, if I can use even this terminology. We don't understand that we caused a lot of discomfort of the residents who already seen us on Jocelyn, specifically street, and on Kanawha, working in the area, moving equipment down the street, disturbing people from sleep. And this was not our wish. We did everything we could to complete the installations on Connecticut as soon as possible. As you saw the brief schedule before, which was shown, not everything went according to plan. The installations at night are still difficult to be performed, and the contractor was working on specific areas. The good news is all the majority of the work on Connecticut Avenue, all new water main installation activities are completed at this point. What is remaining on Connecticut is for us to complete the testing of the new 12-inch water main installations on Connecticut. And connect this new water main to what is already being installed on Kanawha, on Military Road, on Jocelyn and Jennifer Street, on both east and west sides. What also is remaining to reconnect everybody to the new water main installation segment on Connecticut Avenue. This could be residential buildings or businesses. Currently, with DC Water Department of Water Services, we're evaluating the sequence of the tie-in installations in advance of scheduling this work. Our current estimate is that most of those tie-ins will be completed during daytime, apart from the two major tie-in operations which are on Connecticut Avenue. And the overall schedule right now, I think we provided a list of the remaining work activities, and our schedule right now is for majority of this time work to be completed by the end of December. And if there are any specific questions of what's remaining, the last of this portion of work will be completing the permanent restoration. And for that particular portion of the work, we're currently working with our contractor to request a permit from DDOT. And prior to that, we also work with DDOT to evaluate the limits of the permanent restoration on Connecticut Avenue. All the permanent restorations on the remaining streets, on the other streets that you see on this map has been completed to date. And we also follow the 1200 linear feet rule, working with the DDOT inspectors to complete section of the work prior to moving to the next segment. The last segment right now where we need to complete the permanent restoration is the Connecticut Avenue from Military Road to Jennifer Street, and complete all the final tie-ins. And as I said, we are currently testing the new water main installations based on the disinfection of the new water main, if we can continue with the scheduling of the tie-in work, which we are currently estimating to be during daytime.
So, Maria, I'm going to take a prerogative and ask a couple of questions before we
Sure.
turn to DDOT. And so, I mean, part of what you're saying is that you all internally made a decision of what should happen during the day and what should happen during the night. And that is going to be a source of frustration for the neighbors, because I understand that you have efficiency issues on Connecticut Avenue, but this work was done very close to where a lot of people are sleeping. And so you guys waited, but they never had an opportunity to weigh in with you about it before, or do that before it began to happen. And so then you talk about the work that's coming. As I'm hearing you, there are two tie-ins on Connecticut Avenue that you anticipate doing as night work.
Yes.
And how long do you think each of those tie-ins will take?
Each of those tie-ins will be no longer than 8-hour period. This is usually determined by our internal DC water services operations, and this will be coordinated. But our estimate is usually no longer than 8 hours. That's also associated, the tie-in operations sometimes is associated of we will provide additional notices to the customers because of outage, and that's also will be evaluated, and we'll be able to provide information to you
Okay, so
when that.
people will get notice of when it's going to happen, and there will be both work through the night, 8 hours. I'm assuming that is a thing that can be done in one night, but it will affect their water service for that period as well. Is that right?
Yes. Uh,
So-
yes, limited number of customers affected by the shutting down of the shutdown will involve closing valves of the distribution system, and for that particular segment, we'll be able to evaluate who exactly will be affected. Will provide notices in advance.
how much notice will you give? Because if it is this, can you assure people that you can give them at least a week's notice before it's going to happen?
I can step in, Maria.
We can, yes,
I can
Emmanuel,
step in, Maria.
thank you.
So as far as notification, there's a couple things that are going to happen as far as notification. So at the beginning of this project, we were doing similar to what we do on all of our different construction projects, is we were providing regular updates on upcoming activities for the next 2 weeks ahead. So our contractor gives us a look ahead schedule every week, at every Friday, which forecasts activities for the following 2 weeks. What we halted those during this process of this work in Connecticut Avenue because frankly, we didn't want to further frustrate customers by sending a bland update to say we're going to be working to install new water main in Connecticut Avenue throughout this week, knowing it's just going to further frustrate customers. So what we are going to do moving forward, following this meeting, I've already talked to Maria and the team about it. We're going to resume those regular updates that I send out every week on Monday, which forecasts the work in the upcoming 2 weeks. So there'll be in some cases a week, sometimes a 2 week advance notice you'll get via my community update email that a water main tie-in is coming. Now, when it actually gets there, to Maria, what Maria was saying, that notification, there is a 48-hour notification door hanger that our water services valve crew will deliver to every impacted customer 48 hours before that shut. So they will know 2 days before that their water will be shut, those specific customers. My email is to the community at large, and I will give you like the location. I'll tell you where. If it's Jennifer, Connecticut, I'll tell you the week of November 26th, on this specific date, Wednesday, November 27th, for instance, we are planning to do a water main tie-in at Jennifer and Connecticut. More will be shared in a future update. And as we get closer to, we'll actually tell you the specific date for it. Then we'll list out the impacted addresses. That's in my email. But then you'll also,
Okay, so thank you. So in the water outage, so there's two things.
Mhm.
There's the work that's going to make the noise, and there's the water outage. And am I right that the outage is the same time as the work? Once you finish the work, then the water is restored. So that's also an 8 hour or on that magnitude outage if you're doing the work in 8 hours. Is that right?
Yes, that's all built in. So once we finish at that time in, we'll what we call recharge the main. When we recharge that main, and let me just also just say, we give the 8 hours, that's a conservative window. There are oftentimes we can complete a tie in less than that window. I want to give you worst case scenario. But if it even takes the 8 hours, we will recharge it as soon as we're done. That recharging may take a process of about a half hour to recharge the entire system because we kind of do it gradually. You don't want to turn everything off in the system and then just turn it back on and everything all at once because you don't want pipe flowing. So it's a gradual flow of the water back into the system. Takes about 30 minutes.
Okay. So I'm trying to get clarity here, but I see some impatience from other folks who want to ask questions. But I also, before I go to DDOT and then we'll go to questions, um, you're talking about this project, but how many other projects do you have up and down Connecticut Avenue that could be coming, or in Ward 3 generally? Is there more that other people in Ward 3 need to be concerned about in this calendar year?
Got it. So there's some that are already happening. I actually, in preparation for this meeting, I just pulled up a series of different notifications of projects I've been sending sending things out for that are already happening. So I'm gonna pull those. We'll get to that. So there are a number of sewer rehabilitation projects we're doing throughout the city. And there are three right now that are in Ward 3. We call it SLRP, the acronym, but it's Sewer Life Restoration Program. And so it's just part of what we're doing a lot of sewer.
Emmanuel, where are you doing them? Because
Sure. Okay, I'll put this project question to you. So this one is so this is one that already in place, and I've already been communicating to community stakeholders on this one. So this is the one in Kellytown, in North Cleveland Park neighborhood.
that's 4200 Wisconsin.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what else?
Okay, so that's that one. This is another one in the North Cleveland Park, and I've been communicating this one as well. That's this one. And there's another one I've been communicating, Cleveland Park. Pulling up. Sorry. Um, and that's this one. So these are three sewer related
Okay,
projects.
so Emmanuel, if you email those to us, you may have emailed them already at different times, but please email them so that we can spread the word about these things. And to the extent that this is night work that you're talking about, that folks can have input on that before the fact, because there's frustration about the fact that uh, that much of the work in the area that many of the affected people are on from is almost done, but they never had input going in. I do need to, we will share with folks who are on this call. I want to move it to
Okay.
DDOT
Okay.
to because and for the DDOT team, so there I have heard different things at different times. At one point I heard, oh, DDOT said that it has to happen at night. At other times I've heard, no, DC Water, that's the way that it practically made sense, was to do it at night because the window to do the work was wider and the traffic issues were different. But Tita, if you can talk about your process, but if you can also speak to what kind of evaluation do you do about whether or not the work should happen during the day or night? I mean, here, the work between Jennifer and Military along Connecticut Avenue, there is a lot of multifamily buildings there. This affected a large number of people through the night. And to what extent do you think about that as you're thinking about whether or not to approve work during the night because it would have less of an effect on traffic, for example? But let me turn it to DDOT so you can do your presentation, and then let's turn it over to other staff.
Thank you very much, Council Member. This is Matthew Marcoux, Chief of Staff at the District Department of Transportation. I apologize. I should have followed Mr. Briggs's example and stayed at the office because I wouldn't have had the difficulty joining the meeting, and my camera is not working, which actually could give benefit to many people so that they don't have to see me. So to answer your overarching question, generally speaking, the only traffic impacts that directly affect timing for work are the ones that Mr. Briggs was mentioning about the types of trip generators that may be impacted by work that's occurring in immediate adjacent, like hospitals, um, large trip generators, there are events in the area. But by and large, the after hours asks that we get, particularly from DC Water, which is one of the more common users of after hours permits, and I'll get you some numbers on those in a moment, for your area and for the city in general. But a primary reason that DC Water does perform work at night is exactly the type of operational challenges that the DC Water team was describing. So, for example, they have to turn off utility of a vital service to people, and that becomes very problematic. And I'll let them obviously speak to that in more detail. If it's done during the day rather than if it's done overnight. There's also the charging of the line, as Mr. Briggs noted, that takes a while. And so it's in their engineering judgment as to why the work might need to take place at night based on their infrastructure and the specifics behind the line. It's not really traffic in general, because DC Water performs work on Connecticut Avenue during the day. DDOT performs our work on Connecticut Avenue during the day. 9:30 to 3:30 are the standard work hours for what's called a principal arterial, which is what Connecticut Avenue is. It's based on the volume of traffic. So for large volume traffic roadways in this area, the three best examples would be Connecticut Avenue, Military Road, and Nebraska Avenue to the south. Those are all either minor arterial or principal arterials. Work zones on those roadways cannot set up during the day until after rush hour, 9:30 in the morning. They have to clear the roadway before afternoon rush hour, so that's at 3:30. So going back to the main point, typically these requests from DC Water are based on utility infrastructure and the utility work that's performed. And so it's less about double checking their engineering judgment, because ultimately they're responsible for their infrastructure and they are the best stewards of how it can be, when it can be worked on. What we look at are primarily the impacts to the community. And I'll just be candid, we did not do as good a job as we should have. I will note that on the plus side, we did a good job with Albemarle Street, where we had a clear resolution from the ANC supporting the after hours. So this is a location where DC Water could have done a better job in communicating with the community, as they noted. DDOT could have done a better job of confirming that as well. So that sort of lays out general the assessment that's made. It's based on their engineering judgment for their utility, and we look at how we can minimize impacts.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I guess I'm hearing you say that if it's on Connecticut Avenue and it's going to take more than 4 hours at a crack, it's going to end up being at night.
Not at all. No, I want to be really clear. That's not what I said.
Okay.
Work
Why?
occurs on Connecticut Avenue during the day, all the time, everywhere from downtown all the way up to Western Avenue. It happens on Wisconsin Avenue all the time. It happens in all major roadways, Pennsylvania Avenue, Minnesota Avenue, and others. So it's not that it's taking place in the middle of the day. Oh, do it at night because you get more work hours. It's 9:30 to 3:30. Those are your work hours that you can work on. And DC Water does work during the day on Connecticut Avenue, Wisconsin Avenue. I think there's something specific to this work that prompted DC Water to do it at night, which is why they don't do night work on most of their work. So to put that contextually, over the course of the last year and a half, DC Water has received permits for about 35 or 30 locations overall across the city, out of roughly 30,000 permits over the course of that same period of time. So it's a very minor, small percentage of permits that actually are after hours work.
We just heard about at least two other ones that are coming, but so a lot of them are happening here. So is there more that you wanted to present on from the DDOT side?
No, ultimately, what we're here to do is to hear how DC Water and the community, particularly through your leadership on this, council member, which we appreciate, um, uh, best believe the work can move forward. And DDOT, provided it doesn't is in the middle of rush hour on Connecticut Avenue, I believe DDOT can absolutely support whatever comes out.
Okay.
Good evening. I don't know if you guys can hear me. This is Mr. Batista. I'm with I'm the PM of Fort Murray Construction on this project.
Mm.
Matthew, if I may add to what you were saying about the work hours, I am not sure if I think it's coming towards the C Connecticut Avenue. Between the hours of 7 to 9:30, it's 4 lanes. They actually have to be closed because of the traffic, because of the rush hour. And we tried as much as we could, the best that we could. That's why it took longer to particularly start this location, because the water line that we're installing, it's pretty much in the middle of, I believe it's the 3rd lane. So you got the parking lane, the bus lane, and I think it's the middle lane. That's what we tie into on Connecticut Avenue. When you do the road closure during the day to have my workers and the traffic and pedestrians everybody to go home safely, it would have been a very difficult task. And we chose to do the work at night for the safety of everyone. I apologize, and we keep apologizing. I can say it over and over again. I am sorry for the residents that going through this, not having not be able to sleep at night for the hours, the work, for the ramming and all the activities that we're doing at night. But this is something that we actually took a long time to kind of see what we could do about this and the best approach. Because when you're looking at the 9:30, and again, 9:30, 3:30, that means I only got 4.5 hours to work. That means we'll probably be there for about 6 months to complete this location. And again, but it doesn't give me excuse. I am sorry. It's taken longer than anticipated. I am sorry that you are disturbing the residents. But this is something that we actually kind of looked with DC Water as well to the best approach to get the work done.
Yes, so I want to open it to questions, and I know there were ANC commissioners that had questions, but Mr. Baptista, I appreciate what you're saying, but it does go to what I was just saying, which is that if you could only work between 9:30 and 3:30, that it gives you limited time. You have time that you have to do setup, and you have time that you have to do breakdown. So there's less time that you can do actual work in order to get it done. And as you described it, if you did it in that window, it would take an extraordinarily long time. So it would be disruptive for a very long time if you did it that way. I also hear you saying that doing it in that day where even during the non-rush hour period, there still can be a decent amount of traffic, that there are safety issues that make you be concerned about your workers, and and pedestrians and others, and that feeds into it. But that's what people are trying to get their arms around. What's driving these decisions, and how does it fit in that there are hundreds of people who are being kept up at night, and how does that get weighed? But I want to stop um, and I know Mitch Bear had a question that he had wanted to ask. And then if there are other ANC commissioners who have questions, we'll do that. And then I guess Lisa Gore has her hand up, and then we'll turn to you, Peter. Okay, so Mitch?
Well, actually, I'll defer to Lisa because she's going to talk to just this project, and I'm going to be talking to Soapstone. And I think that it's helpful to have the discussion of the Connecticut project go and not be disrupted with Soapstone, because people are going to get confused. So I'm going to defer to Lisa and the people up there, but I hope that I have my time reserved for me after they get done talking about their project.
Fair enough. Lisa?
Sure, thank you, Councilmember Freeman. I have a question for DC Water and DDOT. I forgot who was talking about the resolution that occurred on Albemarle. So one of the things that's very problematic for us in terms of the ANC, we had absolutely no contact from DC Water, from DDOT on the night work, the permit work. We did not find out until we started getting a mass onslaught of complaints from our constituents. So I'm really curious about the ANC notification process, and how did you guys switch to actually having notified, the other ANC to get a resolution on the Albemarle Street? Because that wasn't done with 34G.
I'll leave it to DC Water to discuss its public outreach. Mr. Briggs, do you want to discuss that about how you notify the community about DC Water upcoming work in the area, particularly work that has this type of footprint?
It's not really notifying the community. It's working with the ANC. You know, when you have something of this magnitude, and I think Councilmember Fruman and Emmanuel, if you can answer this, I'm really addressing it to you. There is no communication with DC Water and the ANC in terms of a two-way direct communication. By the time we get an email, something's already in place and done. I specifically want to know, one ANC is given an opportunity to do a resolution and another ANC knows nothing. So I want to make sure I understand the process as chair of my ANC to see how that came about and what was missed in this process so we don't miss it again.
Okay, and this is, I'm sorry, this is which project?
The one we're talking about now.
The Soapstone?
The
This
Connecticut
is
Avenue.
Connecticut Avenue.
So and look, so with all of these projects at the onset of all of these projects, what we do, and I know that in the course of the last, I don't know, year or two, there's been a redistricting. But at the beginning of every project, what I do is I look at the project and where it falls. And when I looked at the project and where it fell, those are the ANCs that I typically notify. If it falls on a boundary, I will typically notify both ANCs. So I think that's maybe where that has happened. I'm not sure, but I know in the course of a lot of these current projects that we have, I know there was some redistricting and boundary lines have changed. Because there's some projects I'll tell you at the beginning, I was notifying one ANC, and now when I'm reaching out to some 2 years later or a year and a half later to get approval for a nighttime shut off for a water main tie-in,
Can I stop you right there, Emmanuel? Just for my clarification. You just said notification. Are you talking about notification to the ANC for nighttime approval of?
Yes, ma'am. So what I do, so my notification group typically consists of the following groups. It's the council member and their constituent services staff. It's the ANC. It's the Mokers for the area. Councilmember Mokers, ANC. And what I also do is for water main replacements, we already have pretty much a listing of resident email addresses that are created for us, because we're also reaching out to customers to get lead lines replaced at the same time. So we get that list prepared for us just because we're doing the LSR or lead service replacement portion. But for sewer stuff, because we don't have those lists prepared for us, I go through our customer service department and I give a list of property addresses and I get email addresses that we have in our system. And those are the customers that when I kick off a project, I'm emailing. If you're a resident, we have your email address, I email you, council members, ANCs, and Mokers. That's my notification.
And so I just want to make sure that's notification, but you're not saying that ANCs have to give approval, right? You're just notifying the ANC.
So what we do in the initial notification, we do want to let you know that this is the project, this is where it's happening, this is pretty much the purpose for it, what you can expect to see. that project information sheet. And then here's who you contact if you have any questions. But in the same email, we will offer a meeting. So if you'd like a meeting or a briefing, please let us know. We'd be happy to accommodate you. So that's what we do at that initial email. And then everything from there on, as I get the 2-week look ahead schedules from the contractor, I do those weekly sort of updates to let you know what's happening the following 2 weeks. And then when we come to like water main shut off, those for either tie-in or transferring folks to the new main, that's when we do other kinds of emails and 48-hour door hangers. But the part we reach out for ANC approval is when we get to points where we have to do, say, a water main tie-in that may be recommended to happen at night because there's a daycare center or school or some other stakeholder that really relies on water during the day. We may have to pivot to night. And so in order to get that approval, that permit, we have to get ANC approval. And that's when we reach out and say, this is the tie-in, this intersection we need. And we'll reach out to that particular SMD commissioner because all we need is just an email from you to say, you have my permission to get that permit. So that's what we reach out for, ANC approval.
Okay, so on this project that's going through 3G, Connecticut Avenue, Joycelyn, behind Chevy Chase Parkway, we had tie-ins, right?
Okay.
And so you're saying the approval went to the single member district commissioner, because I definitely did not receive anything from the ANC. And that's one of the questions that community members have brought up. And I haven't been able to give them answers because I honestly haven't seen anything. And the single member district commissioner has been pretty adamant that he did not receive anything as well. So we didn't have a chance to give the community notification that the night work was going to begin. So that's part of the issue. It seems like in 3G, something was dropped.
I understand. And I understand, and I know exactly what you're saying. Because yes, we for the tie-ins that have been done up to this point, those tie-ins have been daytime tie-ins. So there was no need to reach out for an ANC to get approval because it was daytime work. It's when it's nighttime. And I do understand for this leg of the work, this nighttime water main installation, I know exactly what you're saying. We did not reach out to the community to let you know that we were switching to some nighttime activities. I will still acknowledge that. I will apologize on behalf of DC Water. That is where a big piece of this really fell through the crack. We did not reach out when it came to this leg of night work that happened in August. That wasn't tie-in work, but it was water main installation. But nonetheless, we still should have let you know we were going into a phase of nighttime work and to get your feedback. And I will admit that and acknowledge that in part of the DC Water.
Okay, I appreciate that because the community was like, what do you know, ANC? And we're like, we don't know anything. So I appreciate that.
And we talk a lot, so I know you know I'd like to.
Yeah. And I would just, offer a suggestion that maybe you can change your procedure to, I would even like for, and I understand, as a single member district commissioner myself, you like to, have some authority and autonomy in that work. But I think these issues are, like Councilmember Freeman stated, it's affecting a lot of people. I would like to see that go back to the entire commission, because then we have to give community notice, and then the community has an opportunity to kind of weigh in and get everybody's feedback. So maybe you guys can kind of look at the procedure for that, make sure the ANC receives notification any nighttime work, and that it actually goes before the entire ANC.
I hear you.
So I want to turn it over to Peter, but actually, you referenced two other projects that maybe they'll just be a day and they'll be tie-ins, but let's be sure that as promptly as possible, you give notice to the ANC about that work and give them the opportunity to weigh in, because if it fell between the cracks on this one, that's really a shame because it affected a lot of people. But let's not let it happen again, even if you think you're just finishing off the last bit. Peter Rankin has had his hand up and has been patient for a long time. Peter, do you want to?
Yeah. So thank you, Councilmember. First, I'd just like to say to DDOT, DC Water, this has been an absolute unmitigated failure, and I can't believe that it's gotten this far and that there has been such a lack of communication, and it seems like almost inability to communicate properly through the proper channels efficiently to let people know when their nights are going to be disturbed. And even on this call, it seems like we can't get a straight answer on when water will be turned off, whether the night work is going to be at night, or who to contact if we have really any problems with that. So I'm glad you shared the contact information about who's going on the call, because when I get woken up, I'll be sure to call you, the project manager for this, and anybody else I need to call to let them know that I'm being disturbed, because it's ridiculous at this point. And I know that this all happened in August, and we had August until December to do something about it, and we seem to just generally have not until people were getting angry. And I understand the concept of wanting to keep workers safe, but it seems like there are significant projects going on in different parts of the city. So I'm glad that we're trying to keep workers safe up here, but maybe we should consider that in other parts of the city where they do construction during the day and on busier streets, and even at times during rush hour. So instead of just, up on Connecticut Avenue, let's make sure that we apply the rules evenly and make sure that all of our workers are safe across the city. And perhaps we should look into some of those decisions. But I guess my question is, given DDOT and DC Water's sort of unmitigated failure to communicate, can we expect that we will get at least more than 48 hours notice before water is turned off or any more night work? Because while I get that there is a certain number of hours at night you can work, I work during the day, and there are a certain number of hours at night I can sleep and still be effective at my job, which I need to pay my bills. So, and I'm not holding out hope that you're going to do it effectively or even moderately well, but if there's any possibility that we can get a clear answer on when the water is going to be turned off, so I know if I have to shower at the gym, and two, if we can get a little more than 48 hours notice on when you're going to be working at night, so I can either make accommodations as necessary or just brace myself for having no sleep. Because again, the lack of communication is just epically failed. I mean, like, it's so ridiculous how bad you are at it. And the fact that even now you said, oh yeah, well, we just didn't tell people. Well, excuse me, that's not really appropriate if you're disturbing my sleep months. So again, can we get a clear answer on when water will be turned off, preferably more than 48 hours in advance, and when more night work is going to happen, preferably not the night it's going to happen, preferably more than 48 hours in advance, and if at all possible, which again, not holding my breath for, is it possible to apply the same construction rules here that you do in other parts of the city, where they shut down streets during rush hour and during the day, and with seemingly no concern for worker safety? Those are pretty much my three questions. And again, thank you for sharing the phone numbers of the project manager. I will make sure that when I get woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning, I give you a call so I can lodge my complaint then.
So I can speak to the notification aspect of things, Emmanuel. Again, you can contact me when you have those issues. You can contact me. And I'll put my contact information in the chat. As far as the notifications, we certainly hear you, sir, and we are going to make it right. So I can promise you that you're going to be getting more than 48 hours notice whenever we have a tie-in scheduled. As I mentioned earlier, when I find out the tie-ins are going to be happening or maybe happening, that typically comes through our contractor's 2-week look ahead schedule. They'll provide us with the schedule. I'm going to return to the weekly reports that we send out to the community that forecast the work that's coming in that's in the upcoming 2 weeks. And in those cases, you'll be able to see that we are scheduling to do a water main tie-in at this location, this intersection or that intersection. So you will be getting that week or that 2-week advance notification when that happens. In addition to, there'll still be their 48-hour door hanger their water services will provide, just so you still have, that's by policy. We have to do that notification. What I do as part of my community updates, that's just something that I just have started doing over the past 5 years with these projects as an addendum to the outreach efforts. Because to your point, sometimes you need a little bit more than 2 days to just know to start preparing, or there could be, a water main, something that's coming that could impact my water service. So, in understanding that, we do provide those weekly updates, and I'm going to start with those again, starting this week. Now that we've got on the other side of this nighttime Connecticut Avenue work nightmare. So I'm promising you, as the Director of Community Affairs, that you will be getting more than 48-hour notification on these kinds of activities moving forward.
For the door hangers, and I live in a building, for the door hangers, do you just do one per building? Because I literally never, I've lived here for 12 years, I've never got one on my door.
Yep, I'm glad you said that. So if there's single family, the policy is that we will hang it on the door. If it's multifamily, we will look for a rental office or a building engineer, someone in that capacity to provide it to. And then from there, we really look for a property management office, and hope that they will reproduce that notification and put it throughout the building. So that's what we do for the multifamily, as far as versus the single family for 48-hour notification.
So I think you could probably take some of the money I pay in my water bill and print them for the buildings too, so we don't have to do it ourselves. Because that's, like I said, lived here 12 years, literally never got one on my door. My manager, the building manager, sends them out when he sees them, but it's a building, stuff gets taken off the doors. So it seems again like we're sort of missing the ball on that one a bit. But yeah, so if we could just improve that would be good. And you mentioned policy. It must be internal policy, because I don't think it's something that we would put in statute. So if we could just sort of update that policy to make it more, communicative, that would be super.
And I'm also not one to overpromise here when it comes to service we provide and that we don't. So I'm not, and I can't tell you here that we're going to change that. All I can tell you here is the policy on how we notify. I will refer that back to the team, but I can't tell you here that we're going to improve that and start doing things differently. And I have to be honest and tell you that up front.
So Hannah's got her hand up, and we'll turn to that. But I think there is going to be at least two more episodes of Night Work, and you please give the notice to the ANC, the SMD, and the ANC chair well in advance. I also hear you that folks will get 2 weeks, between 1 and 2 weeks notice and the 48 hours, but figuring out a way so that people get meaningful notice inside of the building, I do think is important. But if you're giving thick notice otherwise, then word can spread. But if you're not giving thick notice, then word won't spread. The other question that's been asked is, how long will the water be off? And I did ask about that earlier, and my understanding is if it's 8 hours worth of work, then that the water would be off in the window where that work is happening. And you confirmed that's the case, except you also said 8 hours is conservative, and so it shouldn't be quite that long. But folks, what's that?
Yeah, sometimes it's done in less than that time. Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're hearing loud and clear the desire for notice and the desire for an opportunity for feedback. Hannah, if you want to go.
Oh, really quickly. And in addition to, when it comes to the email notice, one thing that I can promise up front is we have a lot of customers' contact information for the weekly notifications on what's happening. If you are on this call and you are currently not on my email distribution list and you've never received an email from me about this project, please email me and say, add me to the list. And I will make sure I add you to the list. So the next report I send out Monday, so we'll get the next 2 week look ahead this Friday. The next report I send out on Monday, I will ensure that you're added. And I'm going to put my contact info in this chat right now. And please email me and say, add me to the list. And I can at least ensure the email notification includes you moving forward.
Okay, Hannah, I'm sorry to make you wait.
Thank you, council member. I just want to start by saying really huge thanks to you, and thank you, Lisa, for being here and speaking for us, because I know I'm not the only one who has reached out over and over and over and over to literally anyone we could find to be sent down like a swirling phalanx wormhole of email non-responsiveness. So we would get an answer, we would get another answer. Someone would point to one person, that person would point back to the other person. The questions for me are, notice is great. We can't really do anything with that other than be like prepared to be annoyed. How do we have a say before the decisions are made so that the money that we're paying for our taxes that are paying for these projects, so that the elected officials that we are trusting to be empowered with doing what's in our best interest, and we as the people who are most affected by this work are perhaps front and center in the calculations. I understand we all want hospitals to work. We all want firefighters to be able to drive down the street. I think you can have a little more faith in us, share that information with us, say, here's what we're thinking, here's what we've weighed, here's what we judge to be the best option, thoughts, and actually give us an opportunity to have some kind of impact on our own lives. I think that would go a long way in mending this, and also letting us know where the accountability lies, because that's been the other issue at the other side of this. This happened, it already happened, we didn't tell you, oops. What? That I'm sure you can imagine how frustrating that is, especially on a lack of sleep.
Yep. No, I think we've spoken before as well. And I certainly, again, understand, folks, I am not here to make excuses or allowances for anything that we have done. I've been nothing but transparent and open and explaining that there was a failure in communication on this nighttime work. And what I am here promising is that we will make good on that failure. So I hear you, and I'm not here to offer any explanations or justifications or, rebuttal. I get it. I work day and night, and I certainly understand, and I've gotten those calls and those texts and those emails, day and night. I can communicate as they say, you shoot the messenger. I can only communicate the information that I am provided. But what we have done is we have done a lot of talking internally in terms of where the breakdown has happened here as far as that communication. And we're on this call tonight because we do want to improve that broken communication. So what we are here promising to do is to do a better job where that broke down moving forward. And that's really all that I can really offer here, is that we're going to make good on that.
So I just want to lift up again part of all of what Hannah said, but a key part is like give us some credit, because if you are upfront with us about here's what we need to do, pipes are exploding, we need to get this work done, here's why we think we need to do it at night, and Mr. Batista talked about why that might be. It will not reflexively say no if the case is compelling for why it has to happen. And I think the folks here, know that there are things that could be difficult, but can understand in a situation where it's a sacrifice for them, but it makes sense. Share the information up front so people can have an opportunity to have input. And that's a thing that's coming up in 2 more instances. And so you alert Lisa to it, and you'll have more conversations about it. I don't see other hands up. I do think, and I haven't forgotten you, Mitch. I do think, the biggest picture here, let's overdo it in terms of communication in whatever work is going forward here. And to the DDOT team, I think when you get an application for night work, I hope you will say, to what extent have you consulted with the community and with the ANC. So you can help us also by making it be a part of your expectation about an application for night work, particularly in close proximity to residences. So, Emmanuel, you have a very challenging job. You maintain your patience. Really appreciate it. This is one that if we all had it to do over again, every one of us, including me, would have done things differently than the way in which it's rolled out. So let's fix it going forward.
Yeah, and I promise we're going to do that.
Okay, so now change. I don't see other hands, so I think I'm gonna. Is there?
Council member, Council member,
Yeah.
can I speak for, add one more thing, please?
Sure.
I would like to be very open and be very transparent. So when we say 2 days, the 2 days that we're referring to is for the times. So in the beginning, there's going to be, and I'm being very transparent. You guys, please provide your feedback. Again, this is in the middle of the road, in the middle of Connecticut Avenue, where we have to do two tie-ins, one by Jennifer Street and one by Military Road. Now, in order for me to do the tie-ins, I actually have to dig it down the hole and expose it, take pictures. So when I submit my shut request, that is ready to go. So the night of the shut, when we're ready to do the tie-in, all we have to do is pretty much cut pipe, put sleeves, and connect it. So you'll have your water back on. So when you guys get up in the morning, you'll be able to take a shower. With that being said, that requires 4 days, 4 nights. It's not 2 nights. I just want to be clear.
Well, I appreciate that. Why is it 4 nights? What does that mean?
So one night is to prep that hole, to prep that shut. When I send the shut request to DC Water for their review and approval, they have to make sure that the hole is open and ready to go. And we have no conflicts, because sometimes, when we do these preparations, we can encounter, existing utilities are not shown on the drawings, or we're not expecting. So we don't want it to be where we tell you 8 hours and then it turns out to be 24 hours. We don't want that. For anybody, for any paying customer that's getting water and paying for water bills. And so I'm being very transparent and make sure that if you guys have something to say, this is a time we'll plan on doing one in the beginning on Connecticut. Then we do all the other tie-ins around the side streets during the day. And then on the other side of Connecticut Avenue will be the last one. So I want to bring that, just be upfront about that.
Okay, so I appreciate that, and I just want to ask a couple of questions about this, because is the idea that one night you go and you have the jackhammer? I came out a number of nights. I don't know, Paolo, if we ever saw each other, but you have the jackhammer, you dig it up, you have the claw thing where you dig out, and then you leave. That could be one night of work.
That is one night. We cover with steel plates.
Then you
be sure. Yes.
Yeah. So then you cover with steel plates. You go and you get permission for what it is that you're doing, and then you come back another night, and you lift the steel plates. You cut the pipe, which has noise to it, and then you install the equipment and do the tie-in, and then you cover it. So what happens over the 4 days? One night is dig it up. Another night is cutting the pipe and fitting the equipment.
So one night is to expose exactly where you're going to tie in. And then we call it for the shut. And again, the shut is they have to check the valves to make sure that the valves are working so they can shut off the water so we can do our work, because we cannot do our work under pressure, right? We just can't do it. It'll be a risk. We just can't do it. People will get injured. So that's not a preparation. They send out the valve crews, make sure the valves are working. Then they notify you guys via emails, via letters, via notices on the door hangers, to give you plenty of notice when the water is going to be shut and the duration of the hours it's going to be shut for. And then when we come in at night, again, we basically cut the pipe, remove our cap, make the connection with the sleeve, and then turn the water back on.
Okay, so this is super helpful. I really appreciate you
Not a
calling a
problem, sir.
timeout and
Not a
saying
problem.
this. So, but and I'm just going to say how I understand it, which is that there's one really noisy night. That's the night where you got the jackhammer and you're digging it out. Then you got the plates there, and then you're going in and out for different nights looking at it, but that's less noisy. Then you have the night where you cut the pipe and you put the new equipment in and you reopen, and that's got an element of noise to it. It takes 4 days, but the number of episodes of really disturbing noise is 1 or 2 nights. Is that fair?
Yes, that is correct. And it's not going to
Okay.
be consecutive. It's going to be one night, then probably in December, it's going to be the other night. We're going to have another night of noise. Yes.
Okay. And then and this is goes to what Hannah was saying about tell us. So, and you're saying that this happens in the middle of Connecticut Avenue. So the idea that you would try to do that during the day, you may or may not have enough time to do it in one day, but also closing as much of Connecticut Avenue as you would need to close, you perceive as, and maybe DDOT shares this view, as being a particularly significant burden, which is why you think this has to happen at night.
Yeah. Sir, just to give you an idea, kind of maybe kind of a picture, one would say. Imagine having a trench open up, having a hole in the middle of the street. You got buses on one side, you got cars on the other side. Somebody comes speeding down Connecticut Avenue, they're trying to cut into a lane. They can't do it. They're running to our employees. That driver is going to get killed. My employee is going to get killed. The reason why we're doing this, and again, I am so sorry for you guys. Again, Peter, I hear you, and everybody on this call. I'm truly sorry for this inconvenience it caused everyone. But those are the risk factors that we have to look at as well. It's the safety of my people, my employees. The most important is the safety of everyone around the employees as well. Is the pedestrians, the traffic, everyone. Because on one side, again, you're gonna close. If you look at, I just looked again at Google Maps to make sure I was right. You have 3 lanes on one side and 2 lanes on the other side, and then you got a bus lane right on where the 2 lanes, and that's exactly where we're doing the work at. It makes it's so tight for us to work because we have to close in order to work safely. We have to close a minimum of 2 lanes, so I can have my machinery, my equipment, and the cones surrounded the area, the work area, so my people are safe. And that's again, but I want to have you guys a clear picture of doing the work at night. What's going to take? It's the 4 days.
Okay, so thank you very much. We're coming up. People have been generous with their time, and Mitch has been patient waiting. I did see that Matthew Marcoux had his hand raised, which I don't know if you still do, Matthew, but if there was something that you wanted to add, then I wanted to give you the opportunity, and then Mitch.
I appreciate that, council member. The reason I raised my hand was something that you and Mr. Baptista were able to address. I just want to make sure that the basis for the nighttime work was being fleshed out without you and Mr. Baptista did a very good job. Mr. Baptista and Mr. Briggs, we look forward to talking to you in more detail about this after this meeting. So we'll follow up with you to schedule something for later this week.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Mitch, take us home on Soapstone.
Thank you very much, Matt. It sounds like deja vu all over again in this discussion. Soapstone has been going on for years now, and we have had the same sorts of problems that you guys are having north of us on Connecticut Avenue. And so to Lisa, I offer you my assistance and counsel. And if you want to give me a call, I can talk with you, because the things that you guys have talked about, we've been talking about with Emmanuel and DC Water for over 2 years now. And unfortunately, we're still having problems in all those areas. We're having problems with communications. We're having problems with notifications. We're having problems with scheduling. And I'm here to indicate that I've called Emmanuel every single week on Monday. And to his credit, he has called me back every Thursday or Friday for the last 2 or 3 months. And we still don't know when Soapstone, more better pointed out, Albemarle and 32nd Street is going to start up again. So the communications has to be very, very frequent. It has to be initiated by both sides. And so I'm here to say that DC Water has to do it, but the ANC has to do it as well. And the ANC has to give DC Water time every month to come in and talk about their project. And there has to be special meetings as well, because this needs to be back and forth. I'm kind of disappointed that it's happening up there on Connecticut Avenue, but I tell you that I'm disappointed that we're not seeing as much communications as we should from DC Water for Albemarle and 32nd. Not enough notification. Well, there's been no notification because there's been no work and no schedules. They dug up the intersection at 32nd and Albemarle and found a big pipe and just basically stopped working. And that's been about 2.5 months ago that they stopped. We only knew about it about 2 or 3 weeks after they stopped what was the problem. We've been told that they're trying to formulate some type of way to go forward with the project so that they stabilize this massive pipe that they came upon that they didn't know about before they got started with it. And we're waiting and waiting to get notifications and schedules and communications on where they're going. But in the meantime, the community has been very, very frustrated because Albemarle and 32nd Street has been closed and traffic has had to find its way many times when detour signs have not been adequate from going down Albemarle and going through the community. And at times, I still see it that people come down to Albemarle and 30th and don't believe that they can't go through that intersection towards Connecticut and go speeding down over speed tables that DDOT, to their credit, have put in for us, and have to turn around and come speeding back to that intersection and find a way out of our community to Connecticut Avenue. And so I'm here to tell you that people continue to speed, they continue to go through stop signs. We've had a fatal accident within the last 2 weeks. There were two cars. I don't know the circumstances. All I know is that there was a major crash and someone died during that crack up because people are still speeding on Brandywine and they're still speeding on Davenport and they're still speeding on Linnaean, trying to figure out how to get from the east side of the community to Connecticut Avenue. And I've offered my assistance to DDOT and to DC Water. Christian has met with me numerous times, and we've talked about this, but we still seem to have a problem with people who aren't obeying the rules and the law and going as fast as they can because they're frustrated. And I'm here just to raise the same issues that I've been raising with you, Matt, for months and months and years, that there just isn't enough communications, Emmanuel. You stopped doing weekly updates for us back when you guys stopped work and people started wondering what was going on. And I was wondering what was going on, so I gave you a call every week. I understand that you guys haven't formulated something, but how long is it going to take to formulate something is the big question that the community has. And so what you originally promised was going to be 6 to 8 weeks has stretched out to who knows how long. You're going to go into late fall into the winter, and then you're going to have problems digging that hole 45 feet deep and 16 feet in diameter down to where you need to work. The community is frustrated. And so if you're going to be there or not be there, why not just cover the hole that you've put in with steel planks and let us use Albemarle while you guys are formulating an answer for us, because this thing seems to be taking a long time, and it will take a long time. Put down steel plates. But if nothing else, there needs to be regular communication with what's happening in the community. And DDOT needs to do, in my mind, a better job with traffic control requirements that are put on DC Water. And with that, I'll stop. But I want to thank Matt for having this meeting and giving me the opportunity to talk this evening.
All right, thank you very much, Mitch. I'm going to do a couple of things, and then we're going to close it out. One thing is really, this is a difficult conversation. I want to thank the DC Water and the DDOT folks for participating. One of the challenges that DC Water faces is, I came out a number of nights to see the work, and I was always trying to ask, how much longer is it going to take? And the folks who were working on it at every instance said, we don't know what we don't know. So when you dig it up, you don't know what you're going to find, and it could be different than what we anticipate. So there's a reluctance to be predicting about things where work is unpredictable, and frankly, where weather can make it so that there are nights or days that work can't be done and it takes for longer. But it goes back again to what Hannah was saying, which is share information with us and we can handle it. So on this thing on Albemarle Street, I get it. You dug it up and there was something there that you didn't expect was going to be there. And that kind of thing happens. This is old infrastructure and the maps of it are not perfect. We were going to rebuild the pool at East Potomac Park, and then folks got in and it couldn't be done. But explain it to folks. Try to be as transparent as you can, because you want to get this done on Albemarle Street. I don't know what the complexities of solving it are, but showing that you're trying is important, because when it feels like a black box that folks have just walked away from, that just inflames frustration. I don't know whether or not the idea of covering it for a period of time and coming back once you have a solution is something that can make sense. I hope that you'll think about it if it is a thing that can make sense. But in any case, share information as best you can. And this issue around, when DC Water got started on this project, everybody wanted it to be tear the Band-Aid off, do this work, it's going to be disruptive, and get it done and then move on. But that's not what happened, and these traffic impacts are real. And this is something for both DC Water and DDOT. We need to figure out a way to address the traffic impacts that are happening in Forest Hills, because they are real and we need to come up with solutions. We're not going to do that tonight. The last thing is, there's been stuff in the chat about oversight over DC Water, and DC Water is an independent institution. So it's not a DC government agency in the same way that DDOT is a DC government agency, but DC Water does participate in the oversight process in the Transportation and Environment Committee, chaired by Charles Allen, and on which I am a member. And so we're coming into oversight season, and we will have to be looking at these kinds of issues, and how night work is operating and how the notice requirements are happening. I promise you that, Emmanuel, I promise, others at DC Water, I promise, and the community, I promise, there will be questions about how these notice processes are working and what kinds of steps DC Water is willing to take in order to ensure that the notice processes, that things don't fall between the cracks. So it's 7. Emmanuel, I think I'll give you the chance to have the very last word, and then I think I want to thank everybody for participating and thank the DC Water and DDOT folks again for the generosity with the time.
Thank you, sir. In closing, I just want to, again, I want to thank Councilman Fruman and staff, and DDOT and the ANCs, the MOCR, the council, the residents, for allowing us to speak this evening. Commissioner Bear, I'm sorry, Commissioner Bear, I hear you. As you mentioned, we talk, in some instances, probably on a daily basis or every other day. I still understand the concerns regarding the project. We do have a meeting tomorrow to discuss where we are. I have conveyed every single concern I can promise you I have conveyed to the team. So they certainly, in addition to just knowing the issues at hand, they've actually gotten it firsthand from the community because everything I get, I forward to them. So they know that we need to figure this out, to move forward. Again, we have a meeting tomorrow to discuss it so that we can get some updated community updates out as far as Soapstone. I'm looking at the chat and I certainly understand the frustrations, with this project. Our job here is to get this done and to get it done right. And so that's essentially what we're trying to do. So I want you guys to know I don't take any of this personal. I take it personal because it's my job. And what I like to do is I like happy customers. And anyone who knows me knows that I strive to have happy customers. And these are not happy customers on this call. And I understand why. And we want to work to get to happy customers. And so we're going to be tweaking some things on both projects. I'm going to send you to your request, Councilman Fruman. I've already drafted up the email that kind of copies every project that I'm aware of that's current and upcoming. So I'll send you that. If you have any questions about any one of those projects, let me know. I can provide information that I can. My information's in the chat. I've already gotten emails from a couple of folks that say, add me to your distribution list on projects. I'll add you and I'll stop there.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And thank you for everybody for participating. I think it's time for us to call it a night. But thank you very much. And I'm sure this won't be the last conversation, but for now, let's call it a night. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Councilmember.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.